Maya Chen stood at attention in the training hall, her muscles aching from the morning drills. Around her, recruits from 47 different alien species waited in perfect formation. The hall was massive, built to accommodate beings of all sizes. Some aliens towered 3 meters tall. Others were small enough to fit in her backpack. But all of them looked more comfortable here than she did. 3 years. That's how long humanity had been part of the Galactic Concordance. 3 years since the alien ships had arrived in Earth's orbit, with an invitation to join the greatest alliance in the known galaxy. 3 years since humans had gone from thinking they were alone in the universe to being the newest, youngest, and least impressive members of an ancient cosmic community. Maya had volunteered immediately. Former Special Forces, 10 years of service, decorated in 3 different conflicts. She thought her experience would count for something out here among the stars. She was wrong. The other species called humans Category D sentients. The classification was supposed to be neutral, just a designation based on technological development and cultural maturity. But Maya had learned what it really meant. It meant primitive. It meant fragile. It meant not worth taking seriously. Attention! The voice boomed across the hall, translated instantly into dozens of languages by the implants all recruits received. Combat Master Vekthar approaches. The massive doors at the far end of the hall slid open. Vekthar entered, and even after 6 months, Maya felt her breath catch. The Kryn were the Concordance's elite warriors, and Vekthar was elite among the elite. He stood 2.5 meters tall, his body covered in chitinous plates that served as natural armor. His people evolved on a high-gravity world where everything was a predator, and it showed. Forearms each corded with muscle, legs built like coiled springs, eyes that could track a target at 500 meters, and the mask. Vekthar wore a ceremonial combat mask, black and silver, etched with patterns Maya didn't understand. She'd learned that the markings indicated rank and combat history. The more complex the pattern, the more battles won. Vekthar's mask was very complex. Today we review tactical assault protocols, Vekthar said, his voice carrying easily across the hall. Hostage rescue scenario, standard concordance doctrine. Watch carefully. Holographic projections filled the center of the hall, creating a 3-dimensional building layout. Vekthar walked through the scenario, his movements precise and controlled. He showed how a concordance team would approach, where they would stack up, how they would breach and clear each room. Maya watched, her tactical mind automatically analyzing the approach. She'd run hundreds of hostage rescues back on Earth. She knew the doctrine, the methods, the split-second decisions that meant the difference between success and disaster, and she could see the problem immediately. The entry point Vekthar had chosen left the team exposed to fire from an adjacent hallway. The sightlines were wrong. Any hostile in that hallway would have 3 full seconds to engage the team before they could respond. 3 seconds was an eternity in combat. She shouldn't say anything. She'd learned that lesson a dozen times over the past 6 months. Humans were supposed to observe and learn, not question, especially not question instructors like Vekthar, who had been fighting wars before humanity had discovered fire. But 3 seconds. People would die in those 3 seconds. With respect, Instructor, Maya heard herself say. The words were out before she could stop them. That entry point is compromised. The sight lines from the east corridor create a fatal funnel. On Earth, we'd never stack entry on that corner. We'd approach from silence. Vekthar's voice cut through the hall like a blade. The temperature seemed to drop 10 degrees. Every recruit turned to stare at Maya. You presume to correct Kryn doctrine, human? Maya's heart hammered in her chest, but she kept her voice steady. I'm just pointing out a tactical vulnerability that you point out nothing. Vekthar crossed the distance between them in 3 long strides. He loomed over her, and Maya had to tilt her head back to meet his eyes through the mask. You are Category D. Your species has been in space for less time than I have been an instructor. Your entire military history is one long record of primitives with primitive weapons fighting primitive battles. And you dare to question concordance doctrine that has been refined over 10,000 years? The hall was absolutely silent. Maya could feel the eyes of 200 recruits on her. Most of them were probably enjoying this. The arrogant human finally getting put in her place. This doctrine has saved billions of lives across 1,000 worlds. Vekthar continued. It has been tested in every environment, against every threat. by warriors whose species mastered warfare before yours learned to walk upright. What could you possibly add to this? Maya wanted to back down. Every instinct told her to apologize and step back into line. But she kept seeing those 3 seconds, that fatal funnel, the bodies that would result. Human experience, she said quietly. Wrong answer. Vekthar's eyes narrowed behind the mask. Human experience, yes, let us see the value of human experience. Recruit Chen, front and center. Maya stepped forward, dread building in her stomach. Since you believe human methods are superior, you will demonstrate them, Vekthar said. Simulation chamber now. The next hour was the longest of Maya's life. Vekthar ran her through a combat simulation designed to be impossible. Everything that could go wrong did go wrong. Hostiles in every shadow, civilians in every crossfire, equipment failures at critical moments. The scenario was built for failure, designed to break recruits who got too confident. Maya ran it anyway. She breached when she should have waited. She waited when she should have breached. She made calls based on Earth doctrine that the simulation wasn't programmed to accommodate. Twice she took simulated rounds that would have been fatal. Once she accidentally shot a simulated civilian when the hostile used them as a shield. But she didn't quit. Even when Vekthar's commentary echoed through the chamber, pointing out every mistake, every failure, every moment that proved human inadequacy. Even when she could hear other recruits laughing. Even when her muscles screamed and her implant warned her that her stress levels were entering dangerous territory. She finished the scenario. Barely. The simulation ended with half her team dead, 3 hostages lost, and her own avatar bleeding out from multiple wounds. Maya emerged from the simulation chamber to find the entire cohort assembled. Vekthar stood at the front, his mask gleaming under the lights. This is human experience, he announced. Reckless, undisciplined, emotional. Humans are soft. You lack the neural pathways for true combat instinct. You are prey species playing at being predators. He turned to Maya. Do you have anything to say, Recruit Chen? Maya stood at attention, sweat dripping down her face, body aching. She should apologize. She should accept the lesson and move on. The simulation was rigged, Instructor, she said instead. But in a real scenario, with real variables, adaptability matters more than doctrine. Vekthar stared at her for a long moment. Then he dismissed the formation with a gesture. As the recruits filed out, Maya caught the looks. Pity from the other humans. Contempt for most of the aliens. She'd just made an enemy of the most dangerous instructor in the facility. But she'd also been right about those sight lines. That had to count for something. The next morning, Maya's body felt like it had been run over by a truck. The simulation chamber used neural feedback to make injuries feel real, and yesterday's impossible scenario had left her feeling every simulated bullet wound. She dragged herself to the morning formation anyway. Missing formation would just give Vekthar more ammunition. Her squad gathered around her in the mess hall afterward. There were 4 humans total in this training cycle, and they'd learned to stick together. Marcus, a former Navy pilot, Chenlin, no relation, from the Chinese Special Police, and David, who'd been a combat medic in the army. You should have kept your mouth shut, Marcus said, not unkindly. He pushed his tray of synthesized protein across to her. She'd been too tired to get her own. We all know the doctrine has flaws, but we're not here to fix it. We're here to survive it and get certified. She couldn't help it, Chenlin said with a slight smile. She's got that American thing. You know, the I have to be right even if it kills me thing. It's not about being right, Maya said, though she knew it absolutely was. It's about people dying because doctrine doesn't account for variables. People die in war, David said quietly. He would know. He'd held enough of them while they did. That's the one constant across every species and every planet. We're not going to change 10,000 years of concordance military theory in 6 months. But Maya couldn't shake the feeling that they were missing something important. The concordance had been fighting wars for millennia, yes. But they'd been fighting them the same way, against the same types of threats using the same basic assumptions. What happened when those assumptions were wrong? She didn't have time to dwell on it. The afternoon brought combat simulations, and Vekthar had arranged for Maya's squad to be the demonstration team. Another impossible scenario, this time in zero gravity. A breached space station, hostile forces, civilian evacuees, and failing life support. Everything designed to showcase human limitations. The Kryn evolved in high gravity. Their bodies were built for it, their reflexes tuned to it. Zero-G was actually harder for them, though they'd never admit it. Humans, meanwhile, had only been going to space for a few centuries. They were supposed to be clumsy and disoriented in microgravity. Maya and her squad entered the simulation chamber. The world dissolved into the gray corridors of a damaged station. Alarms blared. Emergency lights flickered. Somewhere in the distance, she could hear the hiss of escaping atmosphere. Standard breach protocol, Marcus said over the squad channel. He was team leader for this simulation. We locate hostiles, neutralize threats, secure civilians, reach the evac point. They moved through the corridors in standard formation. Or they tried to. Zero-G made everything strange. Push off too hard and you'd sail past your cover. Turn too fast and you'd tumble. The simulation was designed to make them look foolish. But something unexpected happened. Chen Lin, the smallest member of their squad, found that her lower mass made her more maneuverable in Zero-G. She could change direction faster, slip through tighter spaces. David, the medic, discovered that his gentle touch, trained to handle wounded in high-stress situations, translated perfectly to the delicate movements needed in microgravity, and Maya realized that humans had something the Kryn didn't: extensive experience being bad at things and finding ways to compensate. Forget the doctrine, she said over the squad channel. Marcus, you're the heaviest, so you're our anchor. Find firing positions and lock yourself down. Chenlin, you're our scout. You can move faster than any of us. David and I will handle extraction and transport. That's not protocol, Marcus warned. No, but it'll work. They abandoned concordance doctrine entirely. Instead of moving as a rigid unit, they flowed like water through the station's corridors. Chenlin scouted ahead, her small profile and quick movements making her nearly impossible to target. Marcus set up ambushes, using his mass and strength to lock himself into position and provide devastating covering fire. Maya and David moved civilians, using techniques that would have made sense to any EMT on Earth, but looked completely alien to concordance observers. The hostiles in the simulation weren't programmed for this kind of asymmetric approach. They expected standard breach and clear tactics. Instead, the humans hit them from unexpected angles, used the environment in ways the simulation's AI didn't anticipate, and adapted their strategy on the fly. 20 minutes later, they reached the evac point with all civilians secure, all hostiles neutralized, and zero friendly casualties. The simulation ended. Maya and her squad floated in the chamber, breathing hard but alive. Victorious. They exited to find Vecthar waiting. His posture radiated fury. You violated every protocol, he said, his voice dangerously quiet. You abandoned formation. You ignored doctrine. You improvised recklessly. We succeeded, Maya said. Her body was still riding the adrenaline high. The hostages are alive. We're alive. That's what matters. What matters is discipline, order, tested procedures. Vecthar moved closer. Your improvisation endangered your entire unit. In real combat, such recklessness results in death. In real combat, rigid doctrine gets you killed when the enemy doesn't follow your expectations. The words hung in the air. Every recruit in the observation deck was watching now. Some of the alien species looked shocked. Others looked interested. This kind of direct challenge to an instructor simply didn't happen. You think you understand combat better than the concordance? Vecthar's forehands clenched into fists. You whose species still fights with chemical propellants and explosive devices? Whose wars are fought over borders and resources like primitive territorial animals? I think, Maya said carefully, that combat is chaos, and humans have a lot of experience with chaos. You have experience with failure and death and waste, Vecthar countered. You have experience with watching your own kind destroy each other over meaningless differences. The concordance ended such primitive conflicts thousands of years ago. We brought order to the galaxy. We established protocols that work across every species and every situation. And you dare to suggest that your brief, violent history makes you qualified to question this? Maya met his eyes through the mask. She could feel her squad behind her, tense and ready to pull her back if needed. She could feel the weight of 200 alien stares. I'm suggesting, she said, that maybe humans survived our violent history because we learned to adapt, to change, to throw out doctrine when doctrine stops working. You will learn respect, human, Vecthar said softly, or you will learn nothing. Respect is earned, Instructor, Maya replied. Not demanded. The silence that followed was absolute. Even the station's ambient noise seemed to fade away. Maya had just crossed a line that no recruit had ever crossed before. She directly challenged not just Vekthar's authority, but the entire philosophical foundation of Concordance military culture. Somewhere in the back of her mind, the part that had kept her alive through 10 years of combat, a small voice was screaming that she'd gone too far. But the rest of her, the part that had watched friends die because commanders were too rigid to adapt, the part that had seen opportunities lost because doctrine said to wait, that part was standing its ground. Vekthar stared at her for a long moment. Then he turned to the observation deck. "Dismissed," he said. "All of you. Except Recruit Chen." The hall emptied quickly. Nobody wanted to witness what was about to happen. Even Maya's squad filed out, though Marcus gave her a look that said he'd be waiting outside. When the last recruit had gone, Vekthar turned back to Maya. "You are either very brave or very stupid," he said. "Probably both, Instructor." For just a moment, Maya thought she saw something shift in Vekthar's posture. Not quite approval, but recognition maybe. Then it was gone. "Tomorrow," Vekthar said. "Combat demonstration. You and I, full contact. We will see what human adaptability is worth against 10,000 years of Kryn warrior tradition." Maya didn't sleep that night. She lay in her bunk, staring at the ceiling of the human quarters and tried to calculate her chances of survival. A full-contact combat demonstration against Vekthar. She might as well have challenged a tiger to a boxing match. The Kryn were designed by evolution to be perfect warriors. They were faster, stronger, more durable than humans. Their reflexes operated on a different scale entirely. Vekthar himself had never lost a sparring match in 16 years of instruction. Never even been seriously challenged, and tomorrow Maya was going to fight him in front of the entire training facility. "You could apologize," Marcus said from the bunk above her. "Say you were out of line. Request reassignment to a different training group." "That would mean going back to Earth," Maya replied. "Admitting humans can't cut it out here." "Maybe we can't," David said from across the room. "There's no shame in that. We're 3 years into this. We're still learning. Maybe challenging the system isn't the way to learn. Or maybe," Chen Lin said quietly, "the system needs to be challenged. I've been watching the other species. They don't question anything. They follow doctrine like it's religious scripture. That works when you're fighting wars that look like the last 1,000 wars. But what happens when something new comes along?" "Then the Concordance adapts," Marcus said. "Eventually. They've survived this long. By crushing anything that doesn't fit their model," Maya said. "We're Category D because we don't think like they do." But maybe that's not a weakness. She didn't voice her real fear. That tomorrow she was going to get hurt. Badly. That Vekthar would make an example of her that would set humanity back years. That her pride and stubbornness were going to cost not just her career, but Earth's entire relationship with the Concordance. Morning came too fast. Maya stood in the combat demonstration arena, a massive circular space ringed with observation platforms. Every recruit in the facility was present. Word had spread. The human who challenged Vekthar. This was going to be educational. Vekthar entered from the opposite side. He'd stripped down to minimal armor, just enough to keep the fight non-lethal. His forearms moved in a flowing warm-up routine that looked more like a dance than exercise. Behind his mask, his eyes tracked Maya with predatory focus. "The rules," announced an automated voice. "Full contact. Fight continues until submission, incapacitation, or instructor's judgment. Neural inhibitors active to prevent lethal force. Begin on my mark." Maya settled into a ready stance. 10 years of hand-to-hand training. Every dirty trick the army had taught her. It wouldn't be enough, but she'd make him work for it. 3, 2, 1, engage. Vekthar moved. Not the cautious probing attack Maya expected, but a full-speed blitz. He closed the distance in a heartbeat, forearms striking from different angles simultaneously. Maya barely got her guard up before the first blow hammered into her forearm. Even pulled, even dampened by neural inhibitors, the impact sent her staggering. She rolled with it, using the momentum to create distance. Vekthar followed, relentless. This wasn't a demonstration. This was a lesson. He was showing her, showing everyone, the gulf between human capability and real warrior species. Maya blocked, dodged, retreated. Every exchange left her with new bruises. Vekthar was toying with her, landing strikes that hurt but didn't disable. Making it last, making the humiliation complete. She had to change the dynamic. Had to do something unexpected. Maya feinted left, then dove right, going for Vekthar's legs. If she could take away his mobility advantage, maybe. Vekthar's knee came up, catching her in the shoulder. Maya went down hard, tasted blood. The crowd was murmuring. How long could the human last? Minutes? Seconds? She rolled to her feet, vision swimming. This was impossible. She was outmatched in every possible way. Strength, speed, durability, reach. Everything that mattered in a fight. Everything except experience with losing. Humans had spent their entire history fighting things bigger and stronger than themselves. Predators with claws and teeth. Other humans with better weapons. Diseases, environments, impossible odds. And they'd survived by being too stubborn to quit and too creative to follow the rules. Maya stopped retreating. She moved forward into Vekthar's range, accepting strikes to land her own. Her punches were weaker, but she aimed for joints, vulnerable points anywhere that might slow him down. She wasn't trying to win. She was trying to problem solve. Vekthar increased his tempo, clearly intending to end this. Forearms moving in a blur, strikes coming from every angle. This was the finishing sequence. This was where Maya went down and stayed down. And that's when Vekthar made his mistake. Frustrated by Maya's refusal to stay down, angry at her persistence, he broke his own protocols. His hand lashed out in a straight-line strike toward her face. Not a sparring technique, a real blow. The kind meant to teach respect through pain, the kind the Kryn used on junior warriors to enforce discipline. In Vekthar's culture, this was acceptable, a teaching moment. The student would take the blow, accept the lesson, and move forward with proper humility. But Maya wasn't Kryn. She was human, product of 200,000 years of evolution on a death world where everything wanted to eat you. Her ancestors had dodged striking snakes, charging predators, incoming spears. Her DNA carried the genetic memory of a million life-or-death reactions. So when Vekthar's hand moved toward her face, faster than thought, faster than any conscious decision, Maya's combat reflexes engaged. Her hand snapped up, intercepting the strike. The impact jarred her arm, but she'd redirected the blow, and in the same motion, too fast for Vekthar to counter, too fast for him to even register what was happening. Her other hand lashed out. Open palm strike. Target. Center mass of Vekthar's ceremonial mask. The crack of composite material breaking echoed through the arena like a gunshot. Vekthar's mask, designed to withstand plasma scoring, decorated with honors from 16 years of undefeated combat, etched with patterns that marked him as elite among the elite. Spiderwebbed from the point of impact, time seemed to stop. Vekthar stood frozen, one hand still extended from his interrupted strike. His eyes were wide behind the fracturing mask locked on Maya's face. His other hands had come up instinctively to his mask, but too late, too slow. He hadn't even completed his blink reflex. The mask fell away in pieces, clattering to the arena floor. Vekthar's face was exposed, something that never happened during instruction. In Kryn culture, the mask was everything. Identity, honor, authority. Maya stood 3 feet away, breathing hard, her hand still extended from the strike. Blood dripped from her split lip. Her right eye was swelling shut. But she was standing, and Vekthar's mask lay in pieces between them. The arena was absolutely silent. 200 recruits from 47 species stared in complete shock. This didn't happen. Couldn't happen. Instructors didn't get hit, especially not by Category D humans. Vekthar's expression cycled through shock, disbelief, and then something else. Something Maya couldn't quite read. His hand moved slowly to his now exposed face, touching the bare chitin where his mask had been. You... He started, then stopped. His voice sounded different without the mask's modulation. Younger somehow, more uncertain. You moved before my strike completed. Maya's mouth was dry. She'd just done something unforgivable. In Kryn culture, breaking an instructor's mask was grounds for immediate expulsion, maybe worse. The Concordants took this kind of dishonor seriously, but she'd been trained never to lie in an after-action review. Yes, instructor, she said. I did. Vekthar stared at her for a long moment. Then he turned to the observation platforms. Someone, he said, his voice carrying across the silent arena. Get me the combat footage now. 3 minutes later. The arena's holographic displays lit up with slow-motion footage of the exchange. Frame by frame, the moment played out. Vekthar's strike. Maya's reaction. The counter that no one had believed possible. Vekthar watched it 3 times. Then he pulled up data overlays. Adding response time markers, neural reaction metrics, kinetic force measurements, the numbers appeared in glowing text beside the frozen image of Maya's hand, connecting with his mask. Neural reaction. Time. 0.08 seconds from stimulus to response. The arena stayed silent. But now it was a different kind of silence. Not shock. Revelation. Standard Kryn combat reflexes operated at 0.12 seconds. Maya had reacted faster than a Kryn warrior. The number hung in the air like an accusation. 0.08 seconds. Faster than Kryn reflexes. Faster than any Category D species should be capable of. The observation platforms erupted into chaos. Aliens were talking over each other in a dozen different languages. The translation implant struggling to keep up. Impossible, someone shouted. The equipment must be faulty. Run it again, another voice called. The human got lucky, but Vecthar was already pulling up more data. He accessed Maya's training records, every combat simulation she'd run over the past 6 months. Frame-by-frame analysis of her movements, reaction time measurements from dozens of scenarios. The numbers were consistent. 0.08 to 0.11 seconds, depending on the situation. Always faster than the concordance baseline for combat-capable species. This is not luck, Vecthar said, his voice cutting through the noise. This is biology. He turned to face the crowd, his exposed face showing emotions the mask usually hid. Confusion, fascination, something that might have been respect. I have trained warriors from 47 species for 16 cycles. Vecthar continued. I have studied the combat capabilities of every sentient race in the concordance. I have never been touched in a first strike scenario. He looked at Maya, who was still standing in the center of the arena, blood dripping from her chin. The human did not freeze. She did not flee. She reacted with lethal intent while still remaining sublethal in execution. Vecthar pulled up a new holographic display. This one showed evolutionary charts, species development timelines, environmental factors. The Kryn evolved on a high-gravity world where strength and durability were paramount. The Velti evolved in deep oceans where sensory processing was key. The Jan evolved in low-gravity environments where precision and patience mattered. He paused. But humans? Humans evolved as both predator and prey. The display zoomed in on Earth, showing its evolutionary history. Humanity's ancestors fleeing from saber-toothed cats, later hunting those same predators, running down prey over impossible distances, dodging, ducking, surviving through pure stubborn endurance. They are pursuit predators, Vecthar said, endurance killers. But they were also prey to larger, faster, stronger hunters. This dual heritage created something unique. Reflexes tuned to avoid death. Adaptability born from necessity. Mental flexibility from constant threat assessment. He turned back to Maya. You did not think when I struck at you. You reacted. Your body knew what to do before your mind could process it. This is not trained behavior. This is genetic inheritance from millions of years of surviving on a death world. The arena was quieter now, but Maya could feel the shift in atmosphere. The other species were reassessing. She could see it in their postures, their expressions, the way they looked at her and the other humans present. Instructor, one of the senior training officials called down from the observation platform. A Velthi, judging by the tentacles. What are you suggesting? I am suggesting, Vecthar said carefully, that humanity's Category D designation may be premature. They lack our technology and our cultural refinement, yes, but they possess capabilities we did not anticipate. He gestured at the broken pieces of his mask. The human broke through composite armor designed to withstand combat damage, not with strength but with speed and precise targeting. This changes nothing, another official said. This one a towering Jean. One anomalous reaction time doesn't compensate for humanity's numerous disadvantages. They are still physically fragile, culturally immature, and technologically primitive. Perhaps, Vecthar said, but perhaps we have been measuring them with the wrong standards. He dismissed the crowd with a gesture. The recruits filed out slowly, still processing what they'd witnessed. Maya remained in the center of the arena, uncertain whether she should leave or stay. Her body was one massive bruise and her head was pounding from the neural feedback. When the last recruit had gone, Vecthar approached her. Without his mask, he looked younger, less intimidating, almost vulnerable. In my culture, he said quietly, breaking an instructor's mask is grounds for immediate expulsion from training. sometimes exile from Kryn society entirely. Maya's heart sank. I understand, Instructor. But, Vekthar continued, there is an ancient provision. Trial by continued instruction. If a student shows exceptional promise but commits a serious violation, the instructor may invoke this clause. The student undergoes intensive personal training for 30 days. If they complete it successfully, the violation is forgiven. If they fail or quit, they are expelled permanently. He met her eyes. I am invoking this provision. You will train with me personally for the next 30 days. I will push you harder than any human has been pushed in Concordance history. I will test every limit you possess. And if you complete the training, I will formally apologize for my initial assessment of your species. Maya tried to read his expression. And if I don't survive? Then you return to Earth in disgrace and humanity's reputation suffers for a generation. Vekthar picked up a piece of his broken mask, studying it. No pressure. Why? Maya asked. Why give me this chance? You could expel me right now and be done with it. Vekthar was quiet for a long moment. Because in 16 years of instruction across dozens of species, I have never been touched in a first strike scenario. My reflexes are elite even among the Kryn. My combat record is exemplary. And you, a Category D human with 6 months of training, reacted faster than I could complete my attack. He looked at her. That means something. I do not yet know what, but it means something. He turned to leave, then paused. Your training begins tomorrow at dawn cycle. Report to Personal Training Bay 7. Bring medical supplies. You will need them. The next morning, Maya discovered that Vekthar hadn't been exaggerating. The Personal Training Bay was smaller than the main arena, designed for one-on-one instruction. No audience. No witnesses. Just her and an instructor determined to either break her or understand her. Day 1 was pure physical conditioning. Vekthar pushed her through exercises that would have been challenging for Kryn physiology. For humans, they were borderline torture, but every time Maya thought she couldn't continue, she remembered the look on Vekthar's face when his mask broke. The shock. The revelation. She kept going. Day 5, Vekthar started teaching her actual Kryn combat techniques. Not the simplified versions used in group training, but the real methods used by elite warriors. He showed her how to leverage her lower mass for faster direction changes, how to use her endurance advantage to outlast stronger opponents, how to turn human weaknesses into tactical advantages. The Kryn fight in short, explosive bursts, Vekthar explained. Maximum force, minimum time. This works against most species. But against humans who can maintain combat effectiveness for extended periods, our strength becomes a liability. You tire us out simply by refusing to die quickly. Day 12, they ran combat simulations together. Vekthar paired with Maya against scenarios designed for elite Kryn teams. At first, Maya's different approach clashed with Vekthar's doctrine. But slowly, they found a rhythm. Vekthar's overwhelming force combined with Maya's adaptability. His experience channeled through her flexibility. They started winning scenarios that should have been impossible. Day 18, other instructors began observing the training sessions. Word had spread about the human who broke Vekthar's mask. They wanted to see what made her different. Vekthar allowed it, treating the sessions like master classes in cross-species combat theory. Observe how the human processes threat assessment, he would say, freezing a simulation. She considers options that Concordance doctrine would eliminate immediately. Sometimes she is wrong, but sometimes she finds solutions we would never see. Day 23, Maya asked the question that had been bothering her since the trial began. Why did you strike me like that? In the arena. That wasn't a sparring technique. Vekthar was silent for a moment. It was a teaching blow. Standard Kryn discipline for warriors who question authority inappropriately. I have used it hundreds of times. He paused. It never occurred to me that you would react defensively. Other species accept it as part of the hierarchy. Your reaction was educational. You hit me to teach me respect, Maya said flatly. Yes, and you taught me something far more valuable. Vekthar gestured at the pieces of his old mask, which he'd kept on a display shelf. That respect cannot be demanded, only earned. Day 28, disaster struck. Not in training, but in reality. The alarms started during a routine training session. Not the simulation alarms that everyone had grown used to. These were real. Station-wide emergency protocols, the kind that meant actual danger. All personnel to defensive positions, the automated voice announced. Hostile vessels detected. Void Reaver attack in progress. This is not a drill. Void Reavers. Even Maya had heard of them. Pirates, raiders, the scum of the galaxy. They hit soft targets like training stations, stole technology and supplies, and disappeared before Concordance military could respond. They were why stations like this had defensive protocols in the first place. But protocols assumed you had time to reach defensive positions. The Reavers had somehow gotten close before being detected, and their first shots had damaged the station's central hub. Whole sections were depressurizing. Emergency bulkheads were slamming shut throughout the facility, trapping people in isolated compartments, including Maya and Vecthar, who found themselves sealed in the personal training bay with no way out and no communication with the rest of the station. Emergency battery power only, Vecthar said, checking the control panel. No connection to main systems. The bulkheads won't open until the attack is over, or until someone manually overrides them from the outside. Maya was already moving, checking their options. One door sealed. Emergency supplies limited, and according to the display, Reaver boarding parties had breached 3 sections away and were moving through the station, heading in their general direction. "We can't stay here," Maya said. "If the Reavers find us trapped in this room, we're fish in a barrel." "The bulkhead is reinforced composite," Vecthar replied. "We have no tools capable of breaching it. Standard protocol is to shelter in place until standard protocol is going to get us killed." Maya was checking the walls, the ceiling, the floor. There had to be another way. What about maintenance access? Training bays don't have maintenance access. They're considered secure zones. But Maya was already pulling up station schematics on the training room's computer system. Every building had weaknesses. Every structure had vulnerabilities. You just had to know where to look. "There," she said, pointing at a ventilation junction. "It's designed for the station's environmental system, but it connects to a service corridor. If we can remove the panel and bypass the safety locks, that passage is less than a meter wide," Vecthar said. "I cannot fit through such a space." "No, but I can." Maya was already dragging equipment over to the wall. "I go through, find the external override, get the bulkhead open. You stay here and guard the door in case Reavers get here first." "This is not protocol," Vecthar said, but he was already helping her. "This is reckless and dangerous and completely unsupported by any documented emergency procedure." "Yeah," Maya said, prying at the ventilation panel. "Very human of me." She thought she heard Vecthar make a sound that might have been a laugh. The ventilation shaft was cramped, dark, and terrifying. Maya pulled herself through using elbows and knees, the narrow passage barely wide enough for her shoulders. Behind her, she could hear the muffled sounds of weapons fire. The Reavers were getting closer. It took 10 minutes to reach the service corridor. 10 minutes of scraping through metal tubes, twice getting stuck and having to exhale completely to squeeze through tight spots. But finally, she dropped into a maintenance passage and found the manual override panel. The controls were designed for the station's maintenance drones, not for human hands. Of course they were. Maya had to use a piece of broken conduit as a lever to activate the emergency release. The bulkhead to the training bay unsealed with a hiss of equalizing pressure. She made it back to find Vecthar in a defensive position by the door. "Well done," he said. "Now we need to reach the security station and explosion." The far end of the corridor erupted in smoke and debris. Through the haze, Maya could see figures moving. Void Reavers, at least 6 of them. They'd breached through an external wall, cutting through damaged sections of the station, and they were between Maya and Vecthar and the security station. "We need to move," Maya said. "If they seal us in this section, they will not seal us in." Vekthar's voice was calm. "We will go through them. There are 6 of them. And they're armed with plasma weapons. Yes, poor odds for them." Vecthar moved first, using his superior speed to close distance before the Reavers could establish firing positions. Maya followed, using tactics they'd practiced for nearly a month. She wasn't trying to match his strength. She was complementing it, hitting angles he couldn't cover, adapting to the chaos in ways that doctrine would never allow. The Reavers were professional pirates, experienced fighters, but they were used to standard concordance responses. Predictable tactics. Opponents who followed established patterns. Maya and Vecthar didn't follow any patterns. Vecthar fought with Kryn ferocity, forearms dealing devastating strikes. Maya fought like every human before her who'd survived impossible odds, using whatever was at hand, changing tactics every few seconds, refusing to die. When she threw a piece of debris at one Reaver's face, then used his moment of distraction to sweep his legs and disarm him, Vecthar actually stopped mid-fight to watch. "Where did you learn that technique?" he asked, blocking a plasma bolt with a stolen Reaver shield. "Didn't learn it," Maya shouted back, using the disarmed Reaver's own weapon against his allies. "Made it up just now. That is not how combat works." "It's how human combat works." They fought their way down 3 corridors. The station's security forces had finally mobilized and were pushing back against the Reavers from multiple directions. Caught between organized resistance and the unexpected ferocity of Vecthar and Maya's assault, the boarding parties began retreating. 30 minutes after the attack began, it was over. The Void Reavers withdrew, their ships disappearing into the void with minimal stolen cargo and significant casualties. The station was damaged but intact. Casualties were surprisingly light, thanks to quick emergency response. In the aftermath, Maya sat against a wall in one of the secured sections, her body finally catching up to what she'd put it through. Every muscle ached. She was pretty sure she'd cracked a rib somewhere in the fighting, and she still had 2 days left in her trial period with Vecthar. Vecthar settled down beside her, looking equally exhausted. One of his arms was injured, moving stiffly, but he was alive. They were both alive. "You saved my life," he said after a long silence. "Multiple times, with tactics that violated every protocol I've ever taught." "You saved mine too," Maya pointed out, "with tactics that definitely followed protocol. Yes, perhaps there is value in both approaches." Vecthar looked at her. "Perhaps the concordance has become too rigid in our thinking. We have 10,000 years of successful doctrine, but that success has made us inflexible. We eliminate variables rather than adapting to them." "Humans are pretty much all variables," Maya said with a tired laugh. "Yes, you are chaos incarnate. It is terrifying and frustrating and completely exhausting." Vecthar paused. "And after today, I believe it is also necessary." 2 days later, on day 30 of Maya's trial, Vecthar called a formal assembly. Every recruit, every instructor, every senior official on the station was present. Maya stood at attention in the center of the arena, wearing her dress uniform, trying not to show how nervous she was. Vecthar wore a new mask, simpler than his old one, without the elaborate decorations. He approached Maya with formal precision. "Recruit Maya Chen," he said, his voice carrying across the arena. 30 days ago, you committed a serious violation. You broke your instructor's mask through unauthorized combat action. This offense normally carries immediate expulsion." Maya kept her face neutral, but her heart was pounding. "However," Vecthar continued, "under trial by continued instruction, you were given the opportunity to prove your worth through intensive training. I can now report that you have completed this trial successfully." He turned to address the crowd. "More than that, this human has taught me something I did not expect to learn. For 16 years, I believed that proper combat was about eliminating variables, following doctrine, and maintaining discipline. I was wrong," murmurs ran through the crowd. Instructors didn't admit to being wrong, especially not Kryn instructors. "Combat is chaos," Vecthar said, "and humanity, for all their apparent weaknesses, has evolved to thrive in chaos. They adapt when we would stand firm. They improvise when we would follow procedure. They survive when doctrine says they should fail." He removed his new mask, holding it in his hands. "I broke station protocol during the recent attack. I abandoned my defensive position to pursue hostile forces, using tactics that no concordance manual would approve. And I did so because a human showed me that sometimes rules must be broken to achieve victory." He turned back to Maya. "I formally apologize for my initial assessment of your species. Humanity's Category D designation was based on limited information and cultural bias. I am recommending a full tactical review of human combat doctrine for integration into concordance training programs." The arena erupted. Some species looked shocked. Others looked intrigued. The human recruits looked like they might cry with relief and pride. Thank you for watching and comment for next part.